Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Resilient and Rowdy. This is your host Jess, and a cool new friend, Mac, is joining me this week. Welcome, Mac.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm
Yeah, of
excited.
course. Mac and I got to hang out for a week at SHOT Show working with Whoopi, and I got to chatting with him, and he's got this really extensive story. I'm just really inspired by him and how he carries himself. And I think that's something that I really would like to share with my audience. Mac, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm originally from Southeast Louisiana. I'm not Cajun, but everybody thinks I'm a raging Cajun. But I joined the Army in 1992, spent almost 25 years, retired as a Command Sergeant Major out of 82nd Airborne Division. My last job, I was the Command Sergeant Major for 2nd Battalion, 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment, which was awesome because I got to do all my first sergeant time in that position, and to be able to come back and be a Command Sergeant Major was just like that's the pinnacle, especially when you go back to where you want to go. I can't say that it was a long 25 years because it went by so fast. Now, I will say when I first came in during the Cold War, nothing was really happening, so it was slower. But when the GWAT kicked off, things got busy. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
got multiple deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. I said I've spent most of my career in the 82nd. I was also in 10th Mountain, the 25th Infantry Division, and the Old Guard in DC in the Honor Guard. I retired back in 2017. The reason I retired is because I jacked my neck up on a jump and had to get the fusion and the pins and all that stuff. I always told myself when my body reached that shelf life as an infantryman, it was time to call it. Plus, after being at the battalion level, after that, it's so political. Like I didn't even really care about that anyway. But yeah, I come from a little, you could say a little redneck background, but I'm a total metalhead, as you can see. When I retired, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but the only thing I did know was that I didn't want to be that typical retired command sergeant major that works at range control and then wears his rank on his sleeve. It's like, why? How can you enjoy life like that? My goal when I retired is I just told myself, I don't want to be Clint Eastwood on Gran Torino, if that makes sense. The
Yeah,
angry
yeah.
old veteran. Just like everybody else that has served, especially in the GWAT, after I retired, I had major issues, just like a lot of guys. And just what I've been doing since is working on myself, obviously. But when I finally built the courage up to re-engage with some of my guys from prior deployments, and it changed things for me because now I'm an old command sergeant major retired, but I'm just Mac. And the coolest thing about being where I'm at right now is those guys and gals that I couldn't be their friend while I was in, now I can be. And I have people ask me, what do you mean by that? You can still be their friend. If you're a combat leader and you're friends with your soldiers at work, you're failing them, because the one thing I learned after all those years through some great leaders and all is that you have to lead from this, not this. And
Yeah.
that's really hard to understand. I did all that time. I wasn't a guy, and anybody that knows me will tell you, Sergeant Major was nowhere in my psyche. I never thought that would be me. I originally came in, I'm going to do 4 years and get out. And as I moved up, I got promoted, and mainly because of the war, I think. And by the time I made Sergeant Major, I was really tired, like a lot of us are, especially after all the deployments and all. But at first, I didn't want it because I had so many guys get messed up over the years and everything. But then I had my mentor told me, look, dude, they're giving it to you for a reason. Go enjoy your year at the Sergeant Major Academy, focus on Mac, and then come back swinging. And that's what I did. And being a Command Sergeant Major was one of the coolest things as far as a guy like me to get to that level. And then you have 1,000 paratroopers, not quite 1,000, 900 something, but to be able to still see your impact daily is, I can't even describe the feeling to you at that level. And I knew that if I stayed in, and after that, as you move up to those bigger positions, you don't see your impact on the soldiers. You're lucky if you get to see a few of them a day. That's all. It's politics and everything else. That's just not who I wanted to be. So now I'm just an old retired guy trying to figure stuff out. And got some really great people in my corner. What I've figured out is now leading by example and showing guys and gals that I'm just Mac. I'm just trying to figure shit out just like y'all. I just do what makes me happy. And that's the key. Like I tell guys all the time, I'm like, look, dude, if you got a job that you're not happy in, or you got this or whatever, you got to make a living, do it till you can find something that you want to do. Because like me, you, everybody out there, all those years we were in the military, we served everything but ourselves. And after you get out, one of the hardest things to come to terms with is that now it's time to do some shit for you. So yeah, that's kind of the little backstory on me. Everybody's got war stories and all that stuff, but to me, the hardest fight other than combat has been the transition, just like everybody else. I know you heard me talk about that when we were in Vegas, but yeah, that's me. I'm just an old dude who loves heavy metal, horror movies. Oh yeah, I'm an actor now. I did a horror movie.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing all that. It honestly sounds like you've lived a pretty cool and fulfilling life. Like, cats have 9 lives. Like, that sounds like you, Mac.
they say beware the old men that are still around in the profession where men die young, and I'm still here.
Yeah.
Uh,
Very true.
uh,
I'm sure that's also like a heavy burden to bear. I have found that a lot of folks, and myself included, acknowledging that heaviness also helps you live your life more because you know that you have brothers and sisters that didn't make it to that age or your age that you are right now. And it makes you just enjoy the little things and live your life while you can, while you're still here. I can definitely agree with you that serving a bigger purpose helps people that are like passionate and driven. And you go from that to, all right, it's just me now. You're like, how do I take care of me? It almost feels selfish. I say that in the context of how people use selfish in a
yep.
negative terms. And it's not selfish to take care of yourself. It's not selfish to focus on you and do what you need to do, especially after how long you've poured into the cup of the military's needs and GWAT. You said as an infantryman, you would call it when your body giving you signs to, but throughout your years in the military, did you ever think that mentally, like, you were almost, like, checked out or you were struggling? And how did you take care of yourself to be able to show up to withstand almost 25 years?
I tell you, my fourth deployment, I was a first sergeant in charge of a company from my 2nd Battalion, 508th. These guys, they had the fight that all the dudes as they came in and all talked about guys like me and the invasion and everything. Oh, you guys were like shoot them up every day, kicking ass and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but it was a different fight. And my fourth deployment, it was my second deployment to Afghanistan, and got my company, and we deployed to in it was September of '09. And we went down there because of the big offensive that was going on in Marja and everything. So my company got attached to the Brits down there, and we were fighting. Well, anyway, long story short, for that, in November, we got the call that we were getting battle space in Kandahar, and it was going to be in the Arghandab River Valley. And the battalion's mission was to go clear the valley, lock it down, and keep the bad guys from getting their supplies across the Arghandab River to get into Kandahar City. And the unit that was there before us had taken a shitload of casualties in just a couple months. It was in the Army times and all. Basically, I can't talk about the unit. I don't know. I know the guys were fighting their asses off, but there was a lot of drama with them. Their command either quit or got fired. And anyway, we got the battle space. We went in on December 19th, conducted a big clearance operation there. And it's pretty quiet. We found a bunch of IEDs, no shooting or anything. And then we cleared, we pushed out, we set up a combat outpost without any support from anybody. So no engineer support, no help. We didn't have air assets. We didn't have anything because it was too dangerous for anything to come in there. I could talk about that for hours. But my point is, we go into this fight. From Helmand, I gave the guys the go to war speech. We're going to take casualties, man. It's going to be rough. And in the back of my mind, I'm hoping I'm wrong. But we go in, establish the combat outposts and all. Then when springtime hit and the greenery came out, that valley looked like Vietnam. If you look at pictures of us there, and pictures of two Fury guys in Vietnam, you can't hardly tell the difference except for the uniforms. And it was an IED fight, basically. So everything we did was dismounted. We couldn't use vehicles, and guys started hitting landmines, booby traps through orchards and fields and everything. The point is, we had a hard mental, physical fight, but it wasn't a every day the enemy's in your face, you get to shoot them fight, if that makes sense to you. And to be the first sergeant, then to keep the guys going. You met some of my guys, you can ask them, to be the asshole all the time is tiring. And out there, the only way I knew how to lead was to make sure that they all had their heads on a swivel and that whatever needed to be done got done. And we mitigated risk any way we could. But to be where I was at, me and my company commander, who's now a colonel, we look back on it, we talk about it, like even then, you got guys that are trained to close with and destroy the enemy, and they're some of the best at it. Like the way I equate the 82nd Airborne, I got my special forces brothers that I love, but the difference between them and us is I tell people they're like the pretty Hollywood plastic surgeons that are out there all surgical, making things pretty. I tell people we're like Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We just go in there and freaking mow shit down. And it ain't about being pretty. It ain't about winning hearts and minds and all that stuff. It's about closing with destroying the enemy. But when you got an enemy that's kicking your ass and you're not firing a shot, that is the most, there's no way to even describe the feeling, because as the leader, we had to push those guys every day to be constantly out patrolling, because we had to dominate the terrain and keep them from moving in and out, which we eventually took the valley, which that was the last place in Afghanistan that no foreign force had ever been able to take. And we took it, but at a heavy cost. I think our battalion had 16 KIAs. I had 3, and we had, some people say 50% in the company. I think it was more about 40% of my guys were wounded. 26 of them were severely wounded where we had to evac them back home. I had 11 amputees and all this stuff. But anyway, I know it's a long kind of thing, but I'm trying to set the stage to answer your question. And that's when I was getting my first look for Sergeant Major, was while we were on that deployment. So before we deployed, to go for your next position and get promoted in the Army, you have to do your records, you got to take a DA photo, all that stuff. At that point, I was so young and it was my first look. I didn't even give a shit, didn't even think about it. So I didn't do any of that. I think the list came out in like July or whatever, but the Sergeant Major asked me, because I had already talked, like, if you don't make the list, man, you're going to be on the takeout roster. And the takeout roster means, because you've been in this unit for so long, they're going to send you somewhere else. So I called HRC, and to tell you the truth, this is the answer to your question. Like, all the stuff I'd been through, I was, and I hate to say the word severely, but that's what they call it, wounded in OIF-1, stayed in the fight. And then at that point on this deployment, I was so tired. I didn't hate the Army. To keep my head in the game and to keep those guys in the fight, it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, because when you become a first sergeant, and I got to say, between the Army and the Marines, it's different. An Army first sergeant is a senior tactical advisor, and the Marines, a first sergeant is a admin guy. So I just got to get that out there for my Marines. I'm not an admin guy. But to be that guy and to see your guys getting fucked up, basically. We found so many of the dismounted IEDs, the booby traps, and all that stuff. But to be the guy that has to be the guy that's putting boot to ass every day and keeping guys out there when we're fighting an invisible enemy. How do you keep their heads in the game? But also, how can you keep your own head in the game? And anyway, towards as summer hit, I just told myself, I was like, I'm so fucking tired. I just need to get a job where I can just go, not be in charge of anybody, just ride it out and freaking retire. Because I just didn't have it in me to see these kids get fucked up anymore.
Yeah.
And
Very draining, I can imagine.
yeah, I said that in the beginning. Major list came out and I made it. I didn't want it at the time. I think I had 17 years in when I made the list, and I think it was just under 18, but I was just so tired. Normally you would be excited. You're like, shit, I made the pinnacle, but I was just like,
Yeah.
I didn't even want it. And obviously, because I wasn't retirement eligible, you can't turn it down. And that's when my sergeant major told me, look, man, I know you're fucking tired. I know it's rough, but you got so much to offer, man. Going to the Sergeant Major Academy for that year and just having to focus on me and my family was one of the best things that could have happened to me at that time. Because now, what I will say is, I did not focus on my mental health at all because I was still in that, how we all are. I was still in go combat mode, and I went through, I got my first choice, came back to the same battalion I left as first sergeant. But another piece to answer that with your question is, I was so excited to get the battalion, right? But what I wasn't thinking was, I'd only been going for 2 years. So I went to Sergeant Major Academy. Out of the academy, they sent me to 10th Mountain and I deployed as a brigade ops sergeant major. And then I got my command sergeant major, came back to the 82nd, same battalion. And then all of a sudden, I get there in November, and then All American Week's coming up in May. And it all hit me that I'm the guy that's got to talk to the Gold Star families. I'm the guy that's got to talk to my guys' families. I sent letters and all, like all leaders do. But again, I had not faced the pain that was going on up here, the guilt. Used the mission, hell, even the deployment with 10th Mountain. Everybody there said they thought I was such an asshole with my 82nd isms, but it was Armyisms. But anyway, I come back to the battalion and I go home one night. I brought in my chaplain, was one of my real good buddies. So I was able to pull him in to the unit to be our chaplain. And I sit down with him and I was like, dude, like at this point, like guys from the Argandab and stuff like that, I hadn't been able to re-engage with them or anything because I just didn't know how. I felt so guilty. I met Staff Sergeant Brunkhorst, Scott Brunkhorst's mom. And for even at that point, when I met her, I wasn't even able to say his name. That's how messed up I was about it. But I hadn't faced anything. And she gave me the biggest hug. And I swear to you, this is exactly what she said. She looked me in the eyes and she was like, Mac, Scott and your guys love you. And none of this was your fault. And we still need you here. And it hit me so hard. And I was like, you
Yeah.
know, I owe it to their families and to them to figure out how to be back in their life. Because you're also scared that, like me in the position I was in, you got to be that asshole all the time. So you think dudes hate you. I was able to re engage with guys. And it was one of the best things that I could have done, especially after I retired, because I got to see that they know, yeah, you were a hard ass, you were this, you were that, but you gave a shit and you were out there on the ground with them every day. So that was I'm done. I'm fucking tired. I can't take this anymore. And there's a lot I could talk about that deployment, but there's a couple books out about it now and stuff like that. But it was something, like anybody out there that's been in combat, you can be in one valley or the other, and it's night and day, the fight. But,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying it was harder than anybody else's fight, but it was so much different than anything that we're trained for, that it was just,
Yeah. Like,
it
it
was
had its
brutal.
own challenges that
Yeah.
you can try your hardest to prepare for. You can get briefed by the previous team that was there, and you just never know what's gonna spring up. And now from an outsider perspective, they view the military and maybe a position like first sergeant and command sergeant major as like this really cool, badass job. But internally, from folks that have been in the military and in the service, like it truly can sometimes be a thankless job. And talking to you in Vegas and talking to you now reminds me of just how I felt as a super young, naive, but eager to learn, just young private entering the 1st Infantry Division. And there was just so much history. And there was a lot of hard charging, badass men just like you that they had their tabs, they had their deployment patches and stuff, and they talk the talk and they walk the walk. And I just remember me being in a gaggle of privates just looking at y'all like in awe, just like, wow, like these are the hard charging that brought people back and tried their best to bring everybody back. And yes, you did have to be the asshole, but that's kind of what we needed. I felt like I could see exactly what you're talking about of, let me say it in layman's terms, of parenting. And you're a parent, so
Yeah.
it's the night and day difference of parenting your children as a parent versus parenting your children trying to be their friend.
Yep.
And we can see that difference in the youth now. Yes, it's no fun, but when you've been in both sides of the boots and position, you're like, okay, they're just doing what they need to do. I'm not going to take this personal. I'm going to do what my first sergeant, my command sergeant major says, because these are people's lives on the line. This is what you signed up for. A lot of us were voluntarily enlisting or commissioning. And so you signed up for this. It's not always going to be fun. It's not always going to be a good time and all that jazz. It's going to suck. People are relying on you to do your best, to do your job, and we all come together and have that sole purpose, especially in those GWAT days. And
Yeah.
it feels so it just feels so good to talk to you and hear your stories because also like one by one, I saw a lot of y'all leave the service. And in my position, I was just like, it's I don't know how to say it, but it's like your best friend just leaving you high and dry and you're just like lost and you're looking at who's around you and nobody else has deployed and you're just like, "Wait, what do you mean? We need y'all." But I think y'all also saw a lot of the stuff that was changing in the military, and I can't disagree with that. But also what you were talking about with the burnout, you were like, "I gave so much and now it's my time to take care of me." And that's another reason why a lot of experienced soldiers left. And whether you want to admit it, you walk very humbly, Mac. You're a part of history. And so, yeah, you say that you're rambling or you don't want to share these stories, but we want to hear them because, like, you are everyone played a role specifically in the GWAT, and it's really important to get that message out because then we have, especially, we have some infantrymen that are being led by other infantrymen that don't know what they're doing. They've never been. Yes, maybe the era has changed, but there's certain tactics and there's so much to be learned by
Yeah.
y'all. So that's why I'm glad that you're taking care of yourself and you're sharing your stories and you're living your best life because you genuinely do deserve it.
Yeah. With that, like, even me towards the end, when I made the decision to retire, which I talked to some of my mentors and everything, but like I said, I didn't want brigade, I didn't want division, and I, I don't even know how to say it, but there were senior officers and all, and senior sergeants majors and all, telling guys like me, "Hey, you need to freaking adjust to the times. You're a dinosaur. You need to this or that." And I'm like, "No, I'm a command sergeant major. My job is to advise my commander on all things enlisted and also train my paratroopers. And I'm not here to be liked. That's not what I'm here for. Yes, I'm abrasive. My paratroopers know that it's not personal. Like, for example, I've had dudes over the years come up to me and be like, "Hey, Sergeant Major, you remember that time you blew me in place and did that? Fuck, kicked my ass, and I was so jacked up, and that one thing changed the rest of my career." And they're like, "Yeah, you remember that?" I'm like, "Dude, if you think I remember that, then we got problems." I'm like, "Because let me guess, I yelled at you, told you to fix whatever it was, told you why it was wrong, and then you fixed the deficiency, and then I probably saw you later on. I was like, 'What's up, Airborne? How you doing?'" Because it's not personal; it's business. It's my job to enforce standards and discipline. And
Yeah.
if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, I'm gonna let you know, and you're gonna freaking fix it. And that,
Yeah.
and
And oh, sorry to interrupt.
no, go ahead.
I think that's what I miss about the military is just after there was a time where my platoon sergeant just put his foot down. He was like, "Hey, when you walk through that door coming into work, everything else, put it aside. If it doesn't help us with our layout, with our day-to-day operations, like getting ready for this training, what have you, if it doesn't pertain to that, like fuck your feelings, put it aside. We're here to work." And I love that. But you can't say that nowadays because everyone just gets their feelings hurt. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. I'm a delicate and sensitive flower. But I also know when push comes to shove and when to put my feelings and everything else aside. And that way you can focus better and you get
Yeah,
the work done.
one of the problems with culture right now, I very seldom go to Fort Bragg because it drives me nuts. We're at a stage to where we're coddling people, and I know people get pissed off about that, but you know what? And this is another reason why dudes like me, I don't think could ever move up to some of those positions because I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And what people fail to understand is, you said it earlier, and I say this to young leaders all the time now and everything else. I'm like, these kids that are under your command are kids. Like, they're college age kids. It's like living in a dorm and this and that. The only difference is your job's life and death. So they need an authoritative figure to kick them in the ass, show them what right looks like, and train them. And they're not going to like it. Hell, I didn't like it. I was like, that dude's freaking, why is he always fucking with us, this and that? And then when you get to those positions, you understand that it's all for a reason.
Yeah,
And
I'm grateful for it too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because what you don't really realize is it's not just being able to shoot, move, and communicate. Just like you're resilient, you have to be mentally and physically resilient. And if words hurt you, then what are you going to do when bullets start flying? Because at the end of the day, okay, if I'm your boss and I yell at you, who gives a fuck? As long as you fix it, it's over. And if you're a good troop, it's probably going to eat at your soul and you're going to fix it. You're not going to want to disappoint your leader. But at the end of the day, that's the leader's responsibility to show these kids, like, this, I want you to be me one day. You can't be me by worrying about it, what somebody said about this or that. And I'm not talking about like illegal, immoral, unethical. That's some bullshit. I've seen leaders like that. For example, when I started Major Academy, we got briefed on toxic leadership, right? And they said I was a young guy there. I wasn't young, but for the academy. And I was always that guy that I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And they were talking about toxic leadership, cursing at your soldiers, this or that, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I disagree. What do you mean, Sergeant Major? I was like, a toxic leader is a detriment to the unit, and they're a me guy, not a we guy. And they're like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, because they're looking at that next position. It ain't about training these soldiers. It ain't about any of that. It's about, where can I go next? What can I do next? And if people get fucking crushed on the way there because I don't do my job, I don't give a shit. That's a toxic leader. I told them every paratrooper that worked for me was either asshole, shit stain, fuck stick, whatever. But I'm serious, like that. To them, that's a term of endearment.
Yep.
Because
Exactly.
if I was like, special such, come here, then they're like, oh fuck, I'm in trouble because I said their name. But if I'm like, hey asshole, come here, they're like, oh, what's up, Sergeant Major? Like, they know.
Right. Yeah. Most people don't get that.
No, that's all part of indoctrination. I guess I could say getting it out of your mind that words are going to hurt you. Because at the end of the day, they're not. Like, every soldier, just like every civilian, if something's not right or somebody says something to you that is 100% wrong, whatever, it's your responsibility to say something. Like, if I'm a sergeant and I go, I'm just out of line, you have basic general military authority to talk to me and say, hey, Sergeant, that was like, I don't even understand. Most of the time, that leader, whoever they are, if they're a good leader, would be like, fuck, man, I was just pissed. I wasn't thinking about what I said. But and what I'm talking about is in those situations where, like, I'm like, hey, asshole, fuck stick, whatever, come here. But if I'm like, look, you motherfucker, right there, I'm looking at him and I'm belittling him as a person. Like, you're a motherfucker. But if I say, get your fucking ass over here, I'm not belittling you. I'm just saying, get your fucking ass over here. I'm not directing anything derogatory at you. That's just how we talk. And I had great leaders that never said a curse word. It was funny. Like, they get mad and they got, gosh darn it, Chris, and stuff like that. But it's the way I look at it is, you go to this place to where you're expected to be, in my world, just a hardened son of a bitch. How can you harden up young kids by coddling them? How can you train them to be leaders by, if they don't like something, then not making them do it? Like, who gives a shit what you like? That's got nothing to do with what we're doing. Just like you said, leave that shit at home. And now you explain everything to everybody. I get that. Like soldiers, for example, I used to tell guys, because everybody needs to know the mission, this and that. I'd tell them, if he's a saw gunner, I'm like, PFC, saw gunner, whatever. I'm like, you don't need to know the fucking mission. You know what you need to know? How to be the best fucking saw gunner in this goddamn unit. Because
Yep.
if you do your job as a saw gunner, the mission gets accomplished.
Yeah.
That's it. It's very hard for me to see some of these things going on right now. To that point, it's also easy to be the armchair quarterback because I'm not in right now. I'm not dealing with their leadership challenges, but it's painful to watch. And people say, what about the 90s? There wasn't a war going on. No, but every fucking day we were training to fight the Russians. It was still, we were at war, just the Cold War. Yeah, just with that, I think where a lot of guys like me right now, we could still be leading by just being out there and letting these guys and gals know that we're here and that we're just as fucked up as they are and that we're trying to figure it out. Because, yeah, when I was in the Army, I knew what the fuck needed to be done. I knew my job. I knew, what they needed to do. I could do any soldier's job that was in my unit because I grew up under what I never trained anybody to do. You never got trained for it. I never got trained for it, was not being that guy or gal anymore. And that's right now, the old hard ass leaders like me, we need them to be out here and re-engaging with these guys and gals and letting them know, hey, I'm still here, man. Like, I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to do any of this shit, man. I want to fucking hug you. I want you to cry on my shoulder. Because like I said, leadership is a lonely fucking place. And now I'm not your leader, man. I'm your fucking friend. And
Yeah.
that's where a lot of my peers, I think right now, are where I was right when I retired, is they just don't know how to re-engage.
Yeah, I agree. And it was really cool to see you like bump into people at SHOT Show that you haven't seen in years. Those moments are just so wholesome and like endearing to your heart. And yeah, you're right. Like to properly lead these men and women, mostly men at the time, you couldn't be their friend because when you cross those boundaries, it makes things a little foggy. Sometimes they don't know when it's time to shoot the shit and when it's time to just sit back and relax and just have fun. So you have to draw that firm boundary. And now that you're out of the uniform, yeah, you're just Mac and you want to show your support how you can. And I think that's really beautiful. That's really important. You're also living by example of what you're saying. That's what I really admire about you is that you made the comment, you were like, I don't want to be like that guy at the range still wearing his title or his position
Yeah.
and he's retired. Who are you outside of the uniform? But also how can you still walk by example to show people that, hey, I was this hard charging badass for 25 years. Here I am doing my own thing, living my best life. And the transition isn't easy, but I can show you that it can be done. And I think
Yeah.
that's awesome.
I'm at right now. I've been retired for 7 years now. I'm not healed by any means. None of us are ever going to be who we were before all that. But every other week, I do my patrol based chats, I call them, where I have guys that work for me, different services that I know. We all just jump on a call every 2 weeks, Wednesday night, 7:30, and we just bullshit. I have worked so hard to get my peers, senior officers and all, to get involved and just be transparent and open. I tell you, it's starting to work. My old company commander from OF1 is a retired colonel. That was 21 years ago. Every week he's on the call because, like he told me, he's Mac. I need it more than they do. But I'm like, I do too, sir. But you just being visible and being here, like that is more, you don't understand the impact that you're having on these guys by knowing that you're still in their life. He had to realize, just like I did, we're all hard asses and stuff like that. You think guys don't like you, this or that. And at the time they did. Now, Jared will tell you, when I was his first sergeant, he fucking hated me. He's a freaking asshole. Now he's like my little brother.
Yeah.
Like, because, and they all say it's so cool to be my friend, but what they don't realize is it means more to me in my heart that they just want to even be around me.
Yeah.
And other leaders like me out there, what I throw out there, and I got to throw shade. Every podcast I do, I throw shade at my peers because you guys got to understand that, like, we don't have shit to prove to anybody. Like, I don't have to walk around with my chest stuck out like I'm fucking badass, right? All right, everybody knows who the fuck we are. Like where strength comes from now is I don't care if you know that every day when you were in the military that you woke up and put that uniform on with the intention of going in to do your job and take care of your soldiers, then you have nothing, no, you got nothing to have any regrets about. You're going to have guilt
Yeah.
because of the decisions. But the thing is, they need to hear, they need to see, I haven't figured shit out yet. I'm living my best life. There's still shit that hits me. There are times where I get in those places and I had to go through therapy. And when I was able to get past because you have to get Bobby on here, he'll tell you, like my first year out of the army, I was still Sergeant Major Mac. I
Right.
was still like,
Like, it didn't hit you,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And that was one of the worst things that happened to me because I got into this place to where I didn't even know where I was at. I've had guys talk to me about it, and I tell them like I was at this point to where I was just angry, bar none, just mad all the time. And everybody around me, all they had to do was just say the wrong thing, and then I was just an evil son of a bitch. It was like a out of body experience. I could see myself doing it. There was nothing in my being that could stop myself. That's when I was like, especially when my best friend and my wife were like, "Hey, this ain't you." At first, going through therapy and everything else, I didn't talk about it to anybody because I was afraid they would look at me like I was weak. I was the sergeant major. And when I was able to open up and talk about the things that I was going through, these guys were hitting me up and sergeant major, I'm going through the same shit. Yeah, man. Because I can't imagine. I don't know what a soldier that does 4 years, one deployment that gets out goes through. I know what an old dude that does 25 years that gets out goes through. So
Mhm.
either way, nobody teaches us how to rationalize any of that stuff, nor how to. I don't even want to like. What I tell some of these guys is they're still stuck. They're stuck on this one event or this one thing, and it's dude, the stuck. Leave that shit. Cut sling load, man. Talk about
Yeah.
it. Get it out of there. I guess my point. We talked about this on my call last week because I have a couple colonels on there. I got trying to get some of my sergeant major buddies, but like we talked about it, just being who I was and then being who I am now with, I would say, the courage to talk about the shit that I go through. Like these guys now, like it's helping them because they're like, okay, yeah, I'm going through it too. Can get through this shit. And that's the thing. I get it. Like senior leaders, even younger leaders, when you get out, that guilt is there. You don't know how to re-engage. You're always going to blame yourself because in the military, if you don't do your job, somebody else gets fucked up. So you always blame yourself. And I still blame myself for things. It's never going to change. But what I do now, I've got a couple buddies that are working this too. I've got to the point to where I can ID the threat when it's coming, and I can either remove myself from the situation or I can just go clear my head, do whatever. But I know when I'm in that place. I think it's important for all of us to show that if you're that asshole that gets out and like, "Yeah, I'm just shooting motherfuckers, blah, blah, blah," you're full of shit. How about quit trying to hide behind your fucking badassness and just be fucking honest? I gotta say one more thing about it is there are so many like veteran influencers and all out there that still push this fucking suck it the fuck up, this shit, that shit. No, man. I told you to suck it the fuck up while you're in. Now I'm telling you, let that shit out. And that's what we need to be saying,
Yeah. Let it
because
out and let it go.
yeah, let it go and just be, find your tribe again. That's the big thing. And your tribe may not even be people that work for you. Like we're tribe members now. We just hung for a week
Mhm.
because that's who we are. Doesn't matter where you served, doesn't matter what your job was. Like I could give two shits if you were a damn pack clerk, S1 pushing papers. At the end of the day, when you lived at 100, just like I did every day, and people are like, what do you mean by 100? I'm like, you're switched on 247 and nobody teaches you how to switch it off. For me, like being on a fob or something, if rockets are coming in, that don't bother me because I'm used to it. But if I join the military, say I'm Air Force, whatever, I never joined to go to combat. I joined to help support the ones that are out there fighting. If I'm somewhere like that and a rocket comes in or something, fuck, that's some of the scariest shit I could ever deal with. Because I've also had guys tell me they didn't do what we did. They ain't got any problems. I'm like, no, that's bullshit. Because at the end of the day, it's not about it. It's we lived a life that yes, we were taught how to live, but we weren't taught how to rationalize it after. And that's the hard part, I think, that we're all dealing with. I know I got on a tangent there, but
No, you are good. Do not apologize, because I love it. I'm here for it. We can all learn from it. And that's the thing. And I think that's the emphasis of why, yeah, we poke fun at people for making podcasts and writing books. But I think as long as the underlying message is to show people what you went through, how you overcame it, and that it can be done, it's showing others that inspiration that it's doable,
yeah,
no matter how severe it was. Like, and sometimes I relate to what you just said. Sometimes you need it more than they do. And that's how I feel about my podcast. Some days I don't feel resilient and I don't feel rowdy. And it's inspiring to me as well to hear these stories, to understand that I'm not alone. The endeavors might be a little different, but the overall mission and impact is to get better and to live your life, because especially with the suicide rates of a lot of veterans, we don't want to keep going to funerals. We're just a phone call away. The I got your six movement isn't just a t-shirt, it's a lifestyle. It's something that you live by.
that's my boy Charlie. Charlie, come here.
Hi, little doggy.
Yeah.
You a boxer?
Nah, he's Vizsla Hound and Pitbull mix.
Oh, he's so cute. Hi, little
He,
doggy.
yeah,
Sorry, okay, I got distracted by a dog. Typical.
he's my son. The wife must have left. She always brings him up here because
Oh.
he's my boy. I think another problem that our community has is everybody thinks if they're not this cool guy or whatever influencer, like their story don't matter. It's like bullshit, man. Everybody's story matters. And everybody has a story and everybody has an impact in that story.
You just never know. Like, in a way, the military can be a big but also small world. After you get out of the army or the military, you'd be surprised who you run into at the VA or even at the DMV. So you never know who you're going to run into, and you swap stories and you're like, "Oh, hey, yeah, I was here during this time." They're like, "No way, like I was there right after you." Finding that camaraderie is really fun, and it makes you feel understood and you're not alone. And also,
Yeah.
I know I personally, like, I root everybody on because I know that it's not easy, and there's room for all of us at the table to succeed. And you don't need to push, shove, lie, cheat, steal, manipulate to get to the top, because when you surround yourself with like-minded folks, like other veterans that want to succeed, want to do good things and stuff, we can all help each other.
The other thing, like one of the problems we have is I made a post about this last week because I was pissed off, but it's just be real, man. Whether good, bad, and different doesn't matter. Just
Yeah.
be who the fuck you say you are. If you're who you say you are, then people are going to respect you for it. They're going to love you for it. And like I said, your story matters. And people know that, what you say comes from the heart. It's not the right thing or wrong thing or whatever, but it's who you are. Then you got nothing. There's nothing to have any regrets about or any of that thing. Just be real. Don't church it up. And who gives a shit? Like I've had my old division sergeant major gave me shit about earrings and my mohawk. And I was like, see, that's the difference between me and you, sergeant major. I fucking retired. You still got a high and tight. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Give yourself that freedom to express yourself however you like.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you don't know what people are going through. And as much as I like to crack jokes and all, if somebody's out there doing their thing and that's what makes their heart happy, I'm rooting for that, because I
Yeah.
know what it must have taken you to be stripped of that internal happiness, that inner light. If that's what you got to do to bring that light back into your heart and your mind, I'm all for it. Like, for example, it was a man in like little hot shorts and rollerblading at the park. And I'm just like, okay, dude, let your freak flag
Yeah.
fly.
Just
Like,
be you. That's what I love about like music festivals and people watching because you see some
Oh,
stuff and you're like,
good
hey,
stuff.
more power to you, dude.
I was just gonna say, tell me a little bit about that. Now that you've been out for a couple years, you've been trying to take care of yourself and you're just unapologetically yourself. You're into music, you're into horror movies, you've done some podcasting, you've done some events, you collaborate with some cool people, and you were in a movie. Tell me about that. Does that bring you joy? Does that help get you out of the house?
Yeah, I'm just myself, and I've met some great people through some of my passions. And through meeting those people, opportunities pop up and you roll with it. And that's what I tell people, man, just do you, man. Because, like, for example, the movie I'm in, it's called The Secret of Sinchanee. I was a killer in the horror movie. The guy who wrote and directed it is a guy named Steven Grayhm. He played in White Chicks. He's played in a shitload of movies and all. Like for you young kids out there, he was in The Boy Who Cried Werewolf and all these different things. I went to Texas with some of my guys, and he was there. And I saw him, and this is like right after I retired. And I looked at, I think Jared was there with me. I'm like, that dude looks so damn familiar. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, holy shit, White Chicks. He was a little party boy in White Chicks. So anyway, we started talking, and then I didn't know this till later, but one of his buddies is a Marine. He's a lawyer and all. He's a really good dude. But he said after he talked to me that his buddy told him, dude, do you realize who the fuck that guy is? And he was like, now, he was a nice guy. He's like, dude, that dude was a command sergeant major in the 82nd Airborne Division. He's done some shit. And he was like, why didn't you tell me? I'm like, who gives a shit, man? I just thought it was cool to meet you. Anyway, he hit me up. I went and did Operation Homefront. This is where they take all the World War II veterans to DC and all, and you help them out. I went with him to that, and then we just became friends. And then a few summers ago, he calls me up one night at like midnight because he lives in LA and was like, hey, Mac, I got an idea for a movie. I got some backing for the money, and you're my inspiration. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, it's a paranormal thriller. You would be the killer, and you would kill people with tomahawks because it's a Native American curse. And I was like,
Wow.
why am I your inspiration, dude, for killing people? He's like, no, man, because I used to be really big into throwing tomahawks and all. I still got all different types of tomahawks, Norse, Native American, freaking Viking, all that
That's
stuff.
cool. Okay.
Um, and then I just love it because it takes skill. Anyway, I told him, I was like, dude, I don't know how to act. He's like, yeah, you do. I know enough about the military to know that to be a sergeant major, you got to be an actor sometimes. I was like, touche. He offered me the role for real. We went and did it. I'll send you a video from when we did the premiere, but it was so cool because he hired a few other veterans on the project. Nate Boyer was in it with me, Rudy Reyes. Rudy was the shaman that I do battle with. And we all lived in an Airbnb together and we just got like really tight. And the coolest thing about that for me is it was almost like a mini deployment again.
I can see
You
that.
know, we were there for a month. You had the production crew, you had the camera people, the sound, you had the makeup, all these like platoons and everything.
Mhm.
It took me out of my comfort zone. I got to see how that process actually goes because I had no clue. I thought it was all easy and people just follow you around with a camera, but now I know 5 minutes of dialogue on film is like 6 hours of work because all the different camera angles and everything.
Oh, yeah.
It was so cool because I asked him now, like, why did you even think about that? I got the eye for things. He was like, you're such a mean looking dude. And I know how big your heart is, but on camera, you're going to be a scary motherfucker. And I was like, okay. And I got to say, when I see me coming down the stairs on that movie, I'm like, I wouldn't want to tangle with that guy at night. Shirt was covered in blood. It came out really well. He just finished another movie. I can just tell you this, it is going to save some veteran lives. Let's put it that way. He's been working on this for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's a true story, but the names are changed, obviously, and all that stuff. He told me all about it, script and everything, and the way he went and worked at the VA for like months just to see the process and everything. Because it's ultimately about a soldier going through the transition struggle. I'm so excited for it to come out because that's going to be awesome. I'm not in it. He offered me a part, but I couldn't do it because I had another engagement. But he just texted me today. I got offered a big role in a big movie coming up. where I'll be one of the sadistic killers again. So it'll be happening in 2025, which I'm super psyched about.
That's
And,
awesome.
yeah,
Congrats, Mac. I'm excited. Just you let
yeah,
me know when it's coming out, and I'll be sure to
yeah.
announce that to my audience. How does it feel to be like a horror film fanatic and now you're doing some roles like that? That's gotta be really cool.
It's cool as shit but that's what I just tell people. I'm like, dude, they're like, how did you get that on? I was like, I was just being myself, man. Like, I haven't went out and looked for any of this stuff. The other thing is, now that I've been retired, I've met some of my music heroes that are like buddies of mine now. And to me, like the way I look at things is like, for example, if you're a really big fan of somebody or whatever, when you meet them, don't fanboy or fangirl out. Just be yourself. Tell them you appreciate what they do and you love it or whatever, but don't don't crowd them. Don't do it. Just be you.
Yeah.
And the coolest thing for me is when you meet some of your heroes, when they find out who we are, to them, we're their heroes.
It's a
Well,
weird feeling, but
it
it's
is,
cool. Yeah.
and they get it hit up from 80 different directions. My point is, if you're out, like I said, just do what feels right for you, have integrity, be yourself. And if opportunities pop up, take advantage of them. I was scared as shit to do a movie because I had no clue what I was doing, but it was one of the coolest things I've ever done. Be in a movie that actually did really well and is on Prime and everything else. And for my family to see that and to be able to go to the movie premiere and stuff like that was like, that was just over the top awesome. And now, granted, that's the other thing people don't understand. They think if you're in a movie or something, you're like all of a sudden rich and all this stuff. It don't work that way. But it's a super cool experience. And what Steven's doing with that is he's every project that he does now, he has from the money made on Sinchanee, he started a production company called Team House Studios. The goal of Team House Studios is any project that he does and from now on is going to be veteran focused, have veterans involved. So if you check out Team House Studios website, I'm the veteran liaison because I told Steven, I'm like, I know you really give a shit about us, man. You love veterans and all this stuff. I was like, but they're just like everybody else. You got to vet them, man, because
Oh, yeah.
some people you may not want on your movie set. And why don't you do it for me? And I was like, all right,
Unfortunately, I can definitely agree and attest to that. People will cling on to the
yeah,
uniform or
yeah,
position or rank to get away with certain things, and that's not okay. You are just as human and flawed as the rest of us, but you're going to be held accountable. And the
yeah,
consequences of your actions are also that you fucked up. And now you're not going to be in spaces where you don't deserve to be.
yeah.
And you don't want some people in your space, and that's okay.
Another one of the coolest things that happened to me after I retired, and I had Jared there with me again, like he's like my little brother. But we were at Ozfest meets Not Fest in 2017 in San Bernardino, California, and I was there. I was able to get a free booth for a nonprofit through Elaney Reese, who her husband owns SG Entertainment. Anyway, Jose Mangan from Liquid Metal. I don't if you ever listen to Liquid Metal or Octane on Sirius XM, he's the host. He's the metal ambassador. But I got to meet him when I first retired through Carla Harvey from the Butcher Babies. One of the nicest guys out there. He told me, dude, I want to do something for you guys here, man. Because in California, he's also the vice president of marketing for, I think it's marketing or brand, whatever, for Affliction Clothing. He has a stage and his studio and all is in the Affliction Clothing headquarters in California. Anyway, this guy, about a month after I met him, I was back here in North Carolina and I get a phone call and it was him. And he's honestly, I just got out. I'm like, this dude's talking shit like most. And he calls me, he's, dude, got an idea. Otherwise is releasing a new album. We're going to do an album release party here. You bring your boys in, man. Just let them have a fucking cool night. And I was like, so I found it's about 8 or 10 of my boys that are local in California. And then I flew out there and otherwise did their thing. And now Adrian and Ryan Patrick otherwise are literally like family to me. Like we talk all the time. I'm helping Ryan has a nonprofit called Light by Music where he teaches kids guitar and songwriting in schools, but now he's starting to do it with veterans. So he just sent a guitar to one of my guys last week, and we're about to start another thing. I can send you that too when he comes up with dates, because I'll be asking for people. But anyway, they do their thing. We hung out with them. It's cool as shit. It was open to the public. Jose's like, all right, everything's over at 11. He closes everything down, but you guys ain't going anywhere. He's like, yeah, dude, party's just starting. And then I see this dude walking in, and I'm like, that's fucking Eddie from fucking King. Because I'm such a metal nerd. King came in and just jammed for the night with us. Like, just hung out all night, playing on stage. Hell, I sung War Pigs with Jose Mangan. Like, it was one of the coolest things ever.
That's awesome.
But my point to that is, we're a couple months later, San Bernardino, California. Me and Jared are there. And Eleni, her husband runs SG Entertainment, but she like handled all the nonprofit stuff and everything. Jose had talked to her, and he told her about me. Anyway, I think it was Saturday night when Stone Sour and Rob Zombie were headlining and all. She told me, "Are you going to be up here at 6?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Meet me at the VIP entrance." So I had Jared with me, and we show up VIP entrance. They bring us backstage, which was cool. I was like, "Oh, this is fucking awesome." And then I'm sitting there. I have a picture I could send you too, because he's just in the background at first. But I'm sitting there. My wife's there. Jared, I think it was just us three. And two of my friends, Nick Quijano and Sagan Emery, they have a band called Hell Sagan, but Nick used to be in Power Man 5000, but they're like real good friends of mine. They were there with us. We're just sitting there. My back's to them, and I hear, "Is that the fucking guy?" And it was Corey Taylor's voice. I was like, "Is that fucking Corey Taylor?" As soon as I look around, he puts his hand on my shoulder. I stand up. He's a very small guy. He's a lot smaller than I thought he'd be. So down to earth and so cool. He was like, I was like, "Dude, I'm a huge fan, man. I've been like Slipknot ever since you guys started." He was like, "Dude, I'm no big deal, man. I just got a voice." And I was like, "Well, yeah, a big deal to me, man." And we're just talking, and he didn't tell me anything. Then we just get to hang out backstage. It's all cool. Then he bring us side stage, and I'm like, "This is cool. I get to watch fucking Stone Sour side stage." This is the kind of shit that happens when you're just yourself, man. Is Jose Mangan's the one that hosts the show. So he's like, "Stone Sour's going up next, blah, blah, blah." He's like, "But first, we're going to bring out a badass motherfucker. Mac, get your ass out here." I was like, "The fuck?"
Right? Someone's telling you to get
Yeah.
your ass out there.
Yeah. And I got out there, and they presented me a signed guitar in front of 40,000 people on stage. It's hanging right there.
Wow. Yeah, it's
And
hanging up there. Yeah.
and being able to see the metal community and how much they're just like normal people who give a fuck. Ryan and Adrian are like brothers to me. Rob Cavastani from Death Angel, the lead guitars. I grew up with Death Angel from the 80s. They're fucking legends. I met him at a show a couple years ago. And then at Blue Ridge this year, even though it got canceled, I set it up with him, and he presented one of my guys one of his signature guitars. And the show got canceled. So he calls me on the phone, "Hey, Mac, we're here, dude. We're not playing because I got canceled, but I could still give him the guitar, but I really wanted to play it and give it to him." And I was like, "Nah, dude, just give it to him." So we went backstage and he gave it to him. The dude's a legend, and he'll take time to send me messages on, like last year on fucking Veterans Day and shit. Just like, "Hey, bro, you know, it's awesome to know you," shit like that. But my point is, you just got to do you, man. And when you do you, people appreciate it. And when they meet you, they're like, "Hey, that guy's who the fuck he says he is, or that guy girl's who the fuck she says she is." And they want to be part of your life. That is so important. Like I said last week in my post, there's so much fake bullshit out there. Why not just be real, man? Just be yourself. Because if you're yourself, people will see it, and people appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can cut through your bullshit in 30 seconds, and I'll tell you, yeah, no, you're not going to be in my circle. Like, that's just how it is.
Yeah,
But
that's huge though. I was definitely naive to that. Getting into the military veteran space is it's like, "Oh, I wouldn't do anyone like that. Why would they do?" Wrong,
yep,
wrong. And like how you're just saying, you show up cool, calm, collected. You're not putting up a facade. You don't have this fake image to uphold. It's easier to walk through life that way. For the folks listening that maybe you can't exactly relate, I used to suffer really bad anxiety, and I held back a lot on my life because I was just so nervous, or I was afraid, or I was just stuck in my head overthinking things. And people can feel that. People can feel your uneasy energy, and you're going to miss out on some cool opportunities. But just like Mac is saying right now, you just work on yourself, do the best you can, just show up every day and stay true to yourself. That's a huge one. And
Yeah.
you'll find the right people, you'll find the right opportunities. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else but you.
I would say one more thing for the listeners out there, for the veterans especially, is get it out of your head that anybody owes you anything or that anybody gives a shit. Because if you get past all that, life's going to be so much better because nobody owes you a fucking thing. You may feel entitled because you're a veteran or this or that, or you saw all this stuff that was happening during the GY, with people getting out and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, like, nobody owes me a fucking thing because I did what I wanted to do. Nobody forced me to go in the military, any of that shit. So
Yeah.
that's the other thing. Like, when you get in situations and you act because, oh, I was in the army, I'm a veteran, blah, blah, blah. And then people are going to be like, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
and
who
like,
gives
what's
a
the
fuck?
point? This isn't you and I being jerks here, it's the reality.
Yeah,
You have to bring more to the table than just the uniform you used to wear.
yeah,
And I think that's what actually is actually really cool about veterans is that once you acknowledge that and you bring forth more things, people are like, "Oh, wow, I love a multifaceted person," and that's the epitome of you, Mac, and a lot of people in the space that we're drawn to is, "Okay, yeah, you wore the uniform, you did some cool shit, that's great, but what can you offer now? What kind of person are you? Are you hiding behind your uniform to pretend that you're a good person, or do you walk the walk and you talk the talk?" Also, I feel like sometimes you mentioned it earlier, it's like the loudest people in the room. Sometimes you gotta be a little wary of them or check
mhm,
in on them, and
yeah,
that's
because
just discernment from the past couple years that you and I have been out of the army and seen the things that people do behind closed doors and stuff, and word gets around, and that's how we hold ourselves accountable, that's how we hold each other accountable. Nowadays, you can't just smoke people just to smoke them or because they fucked up, and I think that's why there are a lot of problems in the veteran space, is that people think that they can get away with stuff. We gotta hold each other accountable, we gotta do better, and there's certain things you don't do, and there's always consequences to your actions. You're not immune to it just because you're a veteran, and you're not entitled to anything either, like you said. If you're applying to a job, cool, you're a veteran. What else can you bring?
yeah,
What skills did you transfer from your military time that you can bring to this company now?
yeah, it's just be humble, be yourself, and
Yeah.
understand that nobody owes you anything. And then the other piece to understanding, like, if you're having issues and everything else, like, nobody can fix you, but can give you the tools all day long. There's so many organizations that do stuff. Like, I've had guys that I've got into treatment centers and stuff, but they did it because I wanted them to. And then guess what? When they got out, nothing changed
Yeah.
because they weren't facing what was going on. And that's one of our big problems, I think, in the community is, like we were just talking, is we live in the past. We may not realize that we're doing it, but we feel like people fucking owe us something and that we're entitled because of what we did. And in the
Mhm.
grand scheme of things, especially now, nobody gives a fuck. Now, granted, people do give a fuck, but what I mean is the masses at the end of the day, there are hundreds of thousands of soldiers out there that fought in the GY. You're not special.
Yeah.
And to me, you're all special. But to you, you need to understand that, hey, I'm just me. I'm not fucking more special than this guy or that gal or this gal. Anything that I do now is going to be because I showed up, I did what I wanted to do, and I had integrity. Like, I was just who the fuck I say I am. And that's why people ask me, like, oh, you got to be friends with this veteran influencer or that one. I'm not going to say names, but I'm like, fuck no.
No, trust
No
me, I'm in the
fucking way.
same boat. I'm like, I
Yeah.
know too much about them to know that they are not
Yeah.
who they portray themselves to be on social media, and
Yeah. And
I'm good.
okay, I
Yeah,
get it. All right. But just don't church it up and act like you're something you're not.
yeah, I agree.
Like what really pisses me off is the ones that like, yeah, I'm out here helping people, this and that. But are you really though? Is it about them or you?
It's like the people that post the videos of them giving money or food to homeless people, you're doing a good thing, but the fact that the camera's there or you have to brag about it,
Yeah.
that's not okay.
Yeah. Like, there's there's so much shit we could talk about.
That's why you're coming back for part
Yeah.
2.
My thing that I just want everybody to understand is everything I say is everybody's story matters. I don't like to talk about myself. I really don't, because it makes me feel like one of those fucking chooch bags.
Yeah.
I could sit here and tell you war stories and fucking schools and all this shit, but at the end of the day, everybody's got fucking war stories. Like, who gives a fuck? When I talk about those things, I want to talk about it in a way that makes sense to guys that were younger than me,
Yeah.
so they can rationalize why things happen.
Like in an educational sense. You're not sharing these war stories to brag or it's
No,
whatever measuring contest, but it is to educate. I think that's like why you and I and the folks around in our mutual circles, it's we're not doing this to for an image or for gain or glory. It's solely for the next generation to learn from our mistakes, our shortcomings, and our experiences so that we as a society can improve and keep moving forward. We can't move forward if our current people aren't educated or they're not listening. Like, how can we
yeah,
get through to them?
yeah, exactly. Look at life, the veteran community. We have the suicide epidemic and everything else like that. But at the end of the day, is it really our service that's causing most of the problems, or is it life? It's fucking life, man. The one thing I think that's very important for people to understand, and it's hard, but especially for you assholes out there who are in combat, when you were in combat, you fought to live every fucking day. You didn't go over there to die. You went over there to kick the bad guy's ass and come home, right? So why not fight to live every day here? Live,
That's beautiful, Mac. Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Because nobody can do it for you. We can lead a horse to water. We can't force them to drink. And like I mentioned earlier, I don't want to keep going to funerals, but we just want to show you that I'm fighting daily, just like you. I have to take things a week at a time sometimes, or even just a day at a time.
I was gonna say, what you saying that the last couple weeks I was like sick. Now that I'm 51, I think I'm feeling my age, so I got in the kind of depressed head state space, and I had some of the guys trying to call me, and I wasn't answering the phone and shit. I sent them a message, "Hey, dude, I'm alive, but I just need a little time." We did our call last week, and they fucking called me out on it. I was so glad they did because they were like, "Look, man, you're fucking here for us all the time. You're saying you didn't want to talk to us because you didn't want to put us in that headspace. That's bullshit. Like, how about we might want to feel your pain, or we might need to talk to you?" That's the thing that we have to look at too. No matter what's going on in your life, those people that are in your circle, in your tribe, they're going to be there for you no matter what. And you owe it to them to be there for them. I always say nobody owes you a fucking thing, and you don't owe anybody anything. But at the end of the day, we all know in our hearts we always owe our brothers and sisters. And what we do owe it to them is just show them that, hey, we're all that shit happened, man. But now I'm trying to still be here because these guys aren't here anymore. They're not here, so I can be here. And just be a good fucking human. And I'm not great at it. Nobody is, but
Oh, yeah.
just try. Like, I'm an asshole sometimes still. That's who we are. The other piece is if you were into this and I'm into this, who gives a fuck? Because at the end of the day, we can agree to disagree and still be fucking close. Because that's one of the other problems is there's so much polarization
Yeah.
in the veteran community and the country. Dude, none of that shit fucking matters, man. What matters is enjoying and living life. You can't live and enjoy life if you're constantly bitching about somebody else's shit.
Some things were meant to divide us because I think we're stronger when we're united, obviously. So those things that come to like cause turmoil or chaos, at the end of the day, we can set our things aside but still come together. Yeah. I like that. I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because that is real. Thank you so much, Mac, for just coming on and sharing a little bit about your story and your mission and things that are important to you. And you'll definitely be back because I still have way more things to ask you. But for the time being, just thank you for coming on. And where can people find you?
My Instagram's Don underscore McAlister.
I'll link
Yeah,
it.
and Facebook's just Donald McAllister. I do Our patrol base chats every other Wednesday at 19:30. If anybody's interested in something like that, just DM me on Instagram and I'll send you the link because I don't send it out to everybody because I want to make sure we got people in there who are actually there for the right reasons. I have guys that hit me up and say, "Hey, you're an inspiration" and all that shit. And you know what I tell them? I'm like, "Dude, I'm not an inspiration. I'm just me." And that's what you need to do. Just do you, man. One more takeaway with Mac is know that we're all in the same gang. And if we can understand that, then like I said, when you re-engage and you get those people back in your life, man, it is so good for your psyche and your soul. And check out my boy William Yeski's book, Damn the Valley. It's about first platoon in the Argandab. He did a damn good job with it. The other thing is, for you podcasters out there and all, get these kids on there that have never told their stories. Let them tell their fucking stories, man, because the ones that think their stories don't matter, their stories matter more. Like it's so important to talk about things and it takes time to figure it out, but if you get to talking to them, they're going to talk. And a guy like me would have never made it to where I was at if I didn't have great damn paratroopers who did their jobs and they made me look successful, but I didn't do shit. They're the ones out there fighting the fight and kicking ass. We us old guys owe you, Jess, and all the younger generation a lot. And for y'all like you, anytime I get invited on these things, it's an honor and it's good for my soul and good for my heart.
Thank you, Mac. That means a lot. I appreciate you too. All right, y'all. Check out Mac, and he'll definitely be back. So if you have any more questions that you would like me to ask Mac on part two, definitely let us know. And be sure to check out his upcoming movie in 2025 and check out his friend's book. Resilient Rowdy Gang, thank you so much for tuning in.